Welcome to Redbeard Radio. I'm Brian Keith, and you've heard me talk about the two ancestral fears. These ancestral fears control almost all of our behavior, and one of them is this idea that if people don't like me, they're going to push me away from the fire and I'm going to freeze to death. And the other one is that if people don't like me, then they're going to kill me in my sleep because I can't be protected while I'm asleep. And my general assumption is that a unknown part of every decision I make is actually coming from one of these two fears. But it's hard to know how much are you making decisions based on you and how much are you making decisions on not getting killed in your sleep or starved to death by your small tribe. To explore these ideas and how we can make better decisions while understanding the older parts of our brain that maybe we don't notice, we have Dr. Jean. Would you please say your name, Dr. Jean?
It's Dr. Jean Oursler. Just call me Dr. Jean, the results queen. This sounds better, right?
It does sound pretty good. So tell me, these ancestral fears that I've talked about for a while, how on the mark are those to your way of thinking?
Oh, they're on the mark because Caveman Brain, which is what is our amygdala. So our amygdala is a small almond-shaped part of our brain. It sits at the back of our head. It is lizard brain, gator brain, but it's from us from days when we were cave people. And it only knows what it sees and what it hears. And the whole idea is that it's our internal protection system. So think fight, flight, or freeze. It sees things, it hears things, it floods our body with chemicals to do something, fight, flight, or freeze. So if you feel that you're unliked or that you're going to die in your sleep because people are going to kill you, that is actually fears based on your caveman brain. So there you go.
So, what do we do about that as business owners once we know that we're carrying around a bit of our prehistoric selves in our noggins?
So we have to realize that what would kill us in caveman days is most likely not going to kill us in today's society. Caveman brain is always going to be with us. You cannot eliminate it. However, you can minimize it, you can understand it, you can harness it, you can control it, you can use it as propeller as opposed to a derailer. When we think about us in caveman days, when the bushes rustled or we heard a noise, we thought, saber-tooth tiger, I gotta run, or I gotta fight it, or I gotta just freeze in place so it doesn't find me. The challenge is today there are not many saber-tooth tigers that are going to kill us. In fact, there's not much of anything that could kill us, and yet our caveman brain is constantly looking for danger and constantly flooding our bodies with chemicals to make us do something. So I would ask you all to realize, unless you're sleeping in a dangerous place, which people do, the fact is that you do not need to be liked. You really don't. You don't need to be liked, and people are probably not going to kill you in your sleep unless you leave your doors unlocked or something like that. Sleep in a dangerous place.
Some people think that because we don't face real threats in our environment, that we make up threats, whether it's an autoimmune illness or anxiety around things that aren't real. What's your take on that?
Well, we do make up stories based on no knowledge whatsoever. Our caveman brains do a good job of making up stories because that's the only way it can protect us. The caveman brain needs something to do, and therefore it needs to make up stories. However, I'm not so sure that it makes up medical stories. It can. Anxiety is a real DSM-5 diagnosis. Autoimmune disease is a real diagnosis. However, when I think to myself that I got to go out and be pushy, salesy, and aggressive so that I can go find business, that's not necessarily truth. Most people are not pushy, salesy, and aggressive.
Let's dive into that. So, you're talking about each of us thinking we have to be a certain way, and then maybe we're thinking that based on wrong information, that there's actually multiple ways. You said earlier, you don't need to be liked, which certainly goes against, me, the kindergartner, think that's the most important thing in the world. How do we identify what is true? Like, let's look at two things. I should go hang out with friends more, or I should mow my lawn. How do I know if either one of these is true, or if it's my caveman brain lying to me in order to help me survive an environment that I no longer live in?
Well, actually, neither one of those would not necessarily be true because those would be based on personality traits of what you like to do better. Because if you're an introverted person, you probably rather mow your lawn. And if you're an extroverted person, you probably rather go out and hang out with friends. So let's just talk about the way of being liked. So we feel the need for us to be liked because as when we're cave people, we're pack animals. And we're still pack animals today in the sense that as pack animals, we need our pack in order to survive. The challenge today is that we don't really need anyone to survive. We can live in our houses by ourselves. We can go to the grocery store and get food. We can figure it out. And there's really nothing that's going to kill us if we're living by ourselves. And the fact is that, and I've gone through this personally on my own journey through my caveman brain, which is how I developed all this, is that I realized that originally I thought, and this is really a girl thing, a woman thing, is that I need to be liked. And then I thought, well, not everyone likes me, and I can't control what other people think about me. I can only be me and do my best and state my intent. And I used to teach people when I started my business that 9 out of 10 people are going to like you. There's a 10th person, no matter what you do, no matter what you say, they're not going to like you. They're just not. Do your best you can and move forward. So if 9 people like it, it's pretty good. At the end of the day, though, I thought to myself, if I didn't have any friends and no one liked me, what would happen next? I'm like, well, I'd probably continue forward. I have to like me first. And while I love my family, I then thought to myself, do I really need my family? Like, if I had to really survive without them, would I? Yeah, because I'd have to like me first. So if I like me first and I like who I am and I like what I do, then that's the most important thing. And then other people, I'm going to find other people who like me for me, which is pretty freaking cool because then you have a tribe of people that you're willing to hang out with. So I don't have to mow the lawn. I can go out and hang out with them.
What do entrepreneurs do that causes them to not like themselves, or what are our biggest blind spots?
Oh, mistakes, missed opportunities, the business falling down. There's lots of reasons why entrepreneurs don't like themselves because they messed up. They let people down. They were disappointed. They didn't do what they said they were going to do, or the things didn't happen the way they didn't want to happen, or entrepreneurship is not an easy row to hoe, but it is the best row that you could ever hoe in your life.
So, what's the solution amongst that list, your litany of reasons entrepreneurs don't like themselves? A pretty good list for people who identify with something on that list. What's the solution beyond saying you don't? Because you said you don't have to be liked, you just have to like yourself. And then you said, here's all the reasons you don't like yourself, all real things.
Oh, yeah. That's because most people haven't taken the time or energy to really like themselves. The coach that I work with, Alan Weiss, he says all the time, oxygen mask on you first, oxygen mask on everybody else. As entrepreneurs, we often put the oxygen mask on everybody else and us last. Truth, as moms, parents, siblings, children, we often are giving to other people, which then depletes our own energy. So the fact is that you have to focus on you first. In order for you to be a great leader, a great entrepreneur, a great mom, a great sister, a great friend, you first, which seems so odd to say. And yet, if you can do all of that first, you first, then you can give to everything else because Caveman Brain will realize that you are not in danger and you're never going to be in danger. So you can put others first and be in service to them to help them.
What's a practical you first thing that someone can do who faces a pretty normal entrepreneurial work week of 40 to 60 hours, probably working at some odd hours of the day, maybe on the weekends? For the average entrepreneur, what can they do this coming week to put themselves first more?
Well, I think most entrepreneurs don't work 40 to 60 hours. I think most entrepreneurs work somewhere between 80 and 120 because we're on 24/7, 365. So, what you could do to put yourself first is take the day off. You need rest and recovery time. Pick a day. Doesn't matter what day it is. It can be a day during the week when everyone's at school and work and you're hanging out in your house, or you go watch a movie, or you do it, go for a run. Put yourself first. Take a day off. Take Saturday off. Take Wednesday off. Take a day off. We can only work 6 days a week. Seriously, we need a day of rest. So pick a day, whatever day it is, and rest. And that's what you can do for yourself because if you rest, research shows that you'll be better equipped, both physically and mentally, to tackle the challenges of your company.
How does that relate to the culture of the other people I hang around? Because their ideas of what rest looks like, it's challenging. I have not taken in the last 6 years a single week, like Saturday to Saturday, without working at all. I've taken some weeks where I've worked very little, but I've taken zero actual vacations completely offline. And my guess is that almost all of my entrepreneur friends would probably say the same thing. So where do we start unraveling that thread?
So I'm going to chuckle on that because I'm right there in that boat with you, in that I take my computer everywhere with me. I'm always available because as an entrepreneur, it's at the end of the day, it's your baby, it's your kid, it's your business. And the reality is that if we, and not necessarily true for startups because they might not have the wherewithal to do this, but if we can put really good people in our organization and know that they're going to make the right choices and know that they're going to do the right things for our business, then we can go off and still bring our computer like our security blanket, put it in the safe and never open it. And I will tell you that I've been an entrepreneur over almost 25 years. And the real first vacation that I took just happened literally 2 weeks ago.
That's not giving me hope, Gene.
I know that because I took 5 days. And while I took my computer, I didn't open up my computer or look at my phone once in 5 days. And yet my business survived and moved forward. And that's because I've taken the last year to put in systems that really allow the organization to run without me. Because really, the ultimate way of being for for entrepreneurs is to be able to, you start a business for freedom. You didn't start a business to work 80 hours a week. So therefore, why don't you make a lot of money and have other people run it because they'll be really happy. And if I may, I'd like to just tell you this story, Brian. I had a client who she hired me for Operation Freedom because she wanted to get out of her organization. And she went to Finland to see the Northern Lights, Norway. She went to Norway to see the Northern Lights. And while she was away, she ran a very large nursing home. The air conditioning broke. And the CFO calls me and says, "Oh my God, the air conditioning broke. What do you think we should do?" And I said, "Well, what do you think? Like, what would the owner do?" And she said, "Well, she would do this, this, and this, but the chief operation officer thinks we should totally replace it." I said, "What do you think you should do?" And she said, "I think, we should call the repair guy and get, the 37-cent fix." Okay, well, what would the owner do? She said she'd call the repairman and do the 37. Well, then do that. So that's what she did. And of course, the air conditioning was fixed. They didn't have to replace it for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And the owner came back and she was like, "Oh my God, my leadership team was the best." And she started taking more and more time out of her business. And the leadership team was so excited for her. And they were excited to be able to run an organization. So they were able to run an organization without the risk. She was able to go away without the risk. And everyone was happy at the end of the day.
Heck of a story, Gene, for people who want that for themselves. What is the first step to exploring what that kind of solution is like?
In terms of Operation Freedom,
Yeah, in terms of having a bunch of free time without your business exploding when you have your phone off. That sounds fun.
doesn't it? I worked with another CEO who wanted Operation Freedom. She ended up moving to Tuscany. I'm not joking on that. First thing you got to think to yourself is how I'm going to fill my time. I mean, think about it. Think about how many hours you work. So if you're going to fill your
I don't want to think about that, Gene. That's depressing. If you're including the 2:30 in the morning, can't sleep, awake in bed, thinking about a problem, writing yet one more tweet, if you're including that, then I really don't want to think about how much I work.
No, 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 no. That's not what I meant. I meant that, like I said to her, if you could do whatever you want over, like let's take 20 hours a week that you're no longer working 20 hours a week, what would you do? She's like, I would learn how to swim. I would travel. I would read. I would volunteer. The fact is, for Caveman Brain, we have to replace the things that we take away, we have to replace with something else. And no offense, Brian, if you're up at 2:30 in the morning worrying about a problem, here's what I'm going to tell you to do. Stop it, because there's nothing that's going to change at 2:30 in the morning for you. Nothing, except you will not be rested, you will not be recovered, and you will be very unhappy and grumpy the next day to your employees. So when you get up in the middle of the night and think, "Oh yes, I could,"
I don't get up, Gene. It's just if I'm just awake in the middle of the night, I have sleep maintenance insomnia. I just wake up and sometimes my brain goes towards something and I notice my thoughts structuring another tweet for a client. When I notice it, I stop and say, and I can do that tomorrow. And then I just take a breath. And sometimes I'm still just awake for a while. And I think plenty of entrepreneurs are like this, where if you just happen to be awake in the middle of the night, you don't have to be on your phone, on your computer, anything, out of bed, anything. Your brain just goes to work because there's so many challenges. And this goes back to the what is dangerous. So if your brain tells you, hey, if you don't fix this thing, if you don't write this tweet, forest fire, the world's going to end. It's not true. And it's not true. But in the middle of the night, your brain's still like, well, we're awake. What should we think about?
actually, so research shows that every human being, no matter if you're an entrepreneur or not, wakes up in the middle of the night somewhere between 2:30 and 4. And what they do is they check their surroundings to make sure the surroundings are the same. And if they're different, they're up. If they're not, they go back to sleep. It's one of the reasons why babies wake up in the middle of the night. You need to keep their environment the same. for entrepreneurs, we just think, wow, I'm up. I should, we want to be efficient with our time and do something and be effective. And there's also research that says that our forefathers would get up in the middle of the night and work for a couple hours and then go back to sleep. So there's really nothing wrong that if you're lying there awake, you get up and work for an hour or two and then go back to sleep and you'll be okay as well.
That's fascinating. Dr. Jean, where can people get a hold of you to learn more about what it's like to go through your processes?
They can email me at jean@cavemanbrain.com, or they can just go to cavemanbrain.com. And we have lots of free things to download to help you, and videos and training, or you can sign up for our programs.
That's great. This has been a thoughtful interview, and I have things to think about. So thank you for aiding my self reflection. And if all you folks listening got something out of it too, that's wonderful. But thank you, Dr. Jean.
Thank you for having me today. It was so wonderful having this conversation.